Now, one of the things you guys might have noticed in the last video was me trying to use these jack stands on this car. Now, that's fine. I use lots of jack stands. I'm not worried about using those, but I had a little bit of a challenge trying to use these bigger ones over the smaller ones. And what you might have noticed last time in the background, but I didn't actually mention, is that I have a couple of Quickjacks. So these are 5,000 SLX, so they're up to 5,000 pounds, which are great. And actually the E38 comes in at about 4,600 pounds. So these will work fine on that. And they even work on my Land Rover, barely, but they do actually work. The problem that I have with these, actually, let me get tape measure and I'll show you. Let's get this mess out of the way first. One of the things we're gonna be doing today is we're gonna take my, my whiteboard here and we're gonna set it up properly, and we are going to put our project list on the whiteboard at some point. But first, let's talk about the problem that I have with these guys. What I wanna show you is, let's get my little dinky tape measure and hopefully I can show this to you. All right, if I go all the way from the bottom part there up to the very top up here, what you'll see is we've got 5 feet. 5 feet for the entire length of these bad boys. Now, 5 feet isn't really a problem for most cars. The problem that I have with on the E38 here is, let me show you. So it might be a little bit hard to see under here, but right here is the jack pad on this side. And of course down there we have a jack pad. Let me pull out the tape measure here and I'll show you what the issue is. That tape measure doesn't work. Piece of junk. All right, let's try one that actually works here. I gotta use my foot because I got one for the camera here. Let's go down here and we're gonna set this perfectly underneath the inside edge of it, which is important, and I'll show you why here in a second. Right here we have 5 feet, and if you look at where that falls, it falls right on the edge of that. With only 5 feet on the Quickjacks, it's too small. It doesn't actually fall on the jack pad. So that's where these guys come in. These are Quickjack Extendomatic 5000s. They go out to 66 inches. So 5.5 feet. So for the measly price of $200 and something. Luckily I got them actually on sale with some other credits. It only cost me about 150 bucks. But we get 6 more inches, and that is actually plenty. Talking about today's episode, let's go and look at all of the parts that I've gotten over the last 3 or 4 weeks that are behind the camera on the other side. We're gonna go through all these parts here, and one of the things I'm gonna have to apologize really quickly is for how messy this has gotten. I need to clean this up. Part of the reason it's this messy is all of these supplies right here are going to be going over to this side. The problem is I have to get rid of my lathe before I do that, so I'm looking for some way to get rid of that. I'm gonna clean all this up, and so I have to do that before I actually get the car in here and up on the jack stands. But let's get back to the parts. Okay, let's go through all these. These are kind of from left to right, not in any particular order. Then we'll talk a little bit about what I've got planned for today's episode. But starting over here, we actually have a new, and we'll be working on this today. We have a fuel pump, we have a fuel filter, a little bit of extra fuel line. I'm probably gonna end up replacing a couple of chunks of this guy. Of course, we have some beauty parts here. We have the grills. We have a couple of new of the polycarbonate lens covers for the front lights. We got some seals, things like that. Let's put this over here. We have a couple of brake pads here. Actually, we have the complete set of brake pads and complete set of rotors. And I was debated a little bit on these. The brakes that are on there actually aren't that old, but I don't know where they came from. I know they're not in the best shape in the world. They're pretty rusted, even for the use that we've been getting on them, and they squeak a lot. And so one of the things I could do is I probably could just replace the pads, get the rotors turned if I needed to. They do have a little bit of a lip on the old ones, but I just decided, you know, if I'm gonna do this right, let's do it right, and we're gonna get some good brakes for it and get those put on. So of course I'm touching the surface of it with my bare hands, which was kind of dumb, but we'll clean those things off anyway. And we ended up getting new sensors for them as well, along with the brake pads, new hardware, new rubber bushings for the calipers, all that happy jazz. So I'm gonna do that right. Here we actually have a timing chain tensioner. No matter what I was planning to do with the timing chains, guys, which right now I'm leaning heavily towards replacing them all. But I got the tensioner no matter what. I was gonna do that. What was this one? Oh, this is the heater valve repair kit, which we'll talk a little bit about today. Well, we're gonna go visit some friends out at Denver Beer and Oil at their site up in North Denver. And they've been nice enough to let me pick a couple of parts off their cars. And one of the things I'm gonna be getting is one of the heater valves. And now we're kind of moving into all the suspension stuff. I got pretty much a complete set of new lower control arms, integral links, drop links, all kinds of, pretty much everything you can think of on the front and rear suspension, with the exception, of course, of shocks and springs, which we might end up still swapping out. But yeah, we got new bushings, like I said, new drop links, a couple of things like that. So pretty much a complete kit from FCP Ural, and we're gonna do it with, of course, Lem Forder. The whole purpose of doing this is all with proper OEM stuff. We are not gonna cheap out on this, we're gonna do it properly. And then over here we have the seat doctors. This is the vinyl dye, leather and vinyl dye, that we need to refinish all of our seats. We got a little bit of crack repair stuff in here, but I got this out of Seat Doctors, which is a really good dye and color place. I was able to give them the color of the inside of the car, and they already have this, they're able to mix this stuff based on that. So we'll be pulling the interior out and testing that to make sure it works. Then we have a complete oil change, and we ended up getting a new lower oil pan gasket, so we're replacing that. We're probably gonna be doing this today as well. I may not put back in the liquid moly to start with, because this is probably going to end up ultimately being a temporary oil change. I just want to be able to drop that lower oil pan, so I may go and get just some decent synthetic oil, and we'll only have it in there for a couple of 100 miles rather than going through the expense of putting in the really good stuff to start with. Still not quite sure yet. That may not happen today. We'll see. But this one is going to happen today. This is a complete auto transmission. Not flush, we're just gonna drain it and refill it. So we have the filter for it. We got all new bolts for the pan. We have new gaskets for the pan, and we have the Redline synthetic ATF oil, which is recommended by ZF for their transmission. So this is kind of an expensive kit, but like I said, we wanted to do it right. And of course, when we're working on these lower bushings for the rear control arms, we need a proper bushing removal. I went ahead and did the expense of getting the right one, because if I go down to AutoZone and get that one, it doesn't work very well. And I've seen people pinch the rubber bushings on here, and we don't want to ruin these guys before we even get them in. Let's see what else we have back in here. This is some new gasket for around the windows, which I don't really need to show you. This is a bit of a tune-up kit we have right here. New spark plugs. In fact, we'll probably do this today as well. New spark plugs. And then these are all the bolts for, I believe, the oil pan. We ended up getting all new bolts for the lower oil pan as well. This is the gasket for the oil level sensor. What else we got in here? New drain plugs, things like that, crush washers. We're gonna do it all right. Here, we'll just leave this over here to the side a little bit. This is another one we're gonna be doing today. This is liquid moly gear oil for the rear diff. So we're gonna drain and refill the rear differential. We've also got coolant back there, so for a complete coolant change, we'll also be picking up some more coolant components, which I've already got some, I'll show here in just a sec. And then we have a complete power steering kit here. We have the reservoir, a new reservoir, and all new lines. So we're gonna basically refresh everything on the power steering, because it is leaking like a sieve. In fact, right now it's so low that it's not even in the reservoir right now. So I thought about just dropping in some general ATF. I may do that if I don't do this soon. We'll probably do this in the 3rd episode. So not today's, but the next one potentially. And then I had to get, of course, some torch fuel. So when it's time to get to that Jesus bolt, I have some good fuel to do that with. And we have the old radio, which doesn't remind you. If anybody wants an old radio, it does actually work. I just don't need it anymore. And then the last thing we have down here is this complete valley pan kit for replacing, of course, the valley pan, the cover. We have all the gaskets and everything for all the intake manifolds, yada, yada, yada. We have I think this is the coolant return line that goes underneath that. And pretty much everything that we need in there to do the valley pan gasket and stuff. And that's about it. I say that's about it, but the reality is that all these parts together probably actually cost more, not probably, pretty close, cost about the same that I paid for the car altogether. Just the suspension parts themselves were like $1,200. So, this is like 300 bucks, yada, yada, yada. It gets expensive fast on these cars, but all of this stuff is stuff that should have been replaced over the last 20 years. And as far as I can tell on it, all these things that I see on there are probably original, with the exception of maybe the brakes, which were just in terrible shape to begin with. And then the only other stuff that I can think of over here that I can show you really quick is this is the headliner and the A, B, and C pillars. We have that. This is another piece of trim that we'll be replacing. And then we have this guy from ECS, which is it was that part that we were talking about that's underneath the hood with the air ducting that goes in. I forget the exact name of it, but it's basically the air ducting piece that has the little doors on it that we need to replace. So there you go. That is about it for all the parts. About it. That's a lot of parts to put on the car, and it's going to take a while to do it. But the other thing, like I mentioned a little bit earlier, we have to go do now is we're going to jump in the the truck and we are going down to Denver Beer and Oil, which is up in Thornton, Colorado. And they have agreed, Chris has been nice enough to let me go in, and he's got a couple of E38s on their property that he's more or less parting out. And he just said, come in and pick a couple of things off of them. So we're gonna go get that heater core, the aux pump, and a couple of, maybe some trim pieces and maybe a body panel. I know that BMWs have really hard paint. I've not tried to polish a BMW before. I've done other cars that typically have softer paints. And I think we're gonna actually have to wet sand this car to get a lot of those scratches out. So I think what I'm gonna do is go get any BMW panel from about the same era, and we're gonna practice doing some wet sanding on it before I actually do it on that car. So I think we're gonna go try and do that, and there you go. Let's go take a look out at Denver Beer and Oil. All right, so we had a good conversation with Chris. He was able to show me around. Huge shout out to Chris for letting me come out and kind of pick over his cars a little bit. I got a couple of these guys I gotta check out. They probably have, I don't know, 4 or 5 of these E38s with stuff in them that he said I had access to. So again, huge thanks to Chris, and let's take a quick look at them. So a couple of these guys are pretty clapped out because they've been open to weather for a little bit, but there's certainly a couple things in here that we might take a quick look at and see if we can get access to. Oh, I think I might have to put the camera down for a little bit before I start taking things apart. Oh, so this one still has the engine in it. So we're not going to be taking anything really out of here. I don't think there's anything off of here that I need right now that wouldn't take the engine out of here. They've already got engines out of several of them, so I don't need to do it again. So unfortunately, it has been raining out here, but it stopped raining, so that's okay. But this is the 740i that Chris has. Also the engine's out, so we're gonna get in here and go ahead and take this guy out really quick. So just a couple of bolts, and then it slips right out, a couple of adapters or connectors, not a big deal at all. The other thing that would be nice to be able to do is to get in the trunk of this one, but unfortunately, I don't see keys, and the trunk is closed. So I'll look around in here a little bit and see maybe if I can find keys are inside. Oh my gosh. It's not that it's a mess per se. There is a key, I'll be darned. It's not going to work to start the car because there's no engine in it, but maybe it'll open the trunk. Ha ha! Success. Unfortunately, there's nothing in here. Just the old CD player. So, not a big surprise the nav is gone, but that's too bad. I was hoping I'd get lucky on that. We'll check some of the other ones. All right, here we go. This is the little part we're looking for right here. This is the aux pump down here, and this is the heater valves right here. And I tell you, this is a lot easier to do with the engine out of the car than when the engine's in the car. This is also a lot easier too when there's not any fluid in the car at all. Well, I guess there's a little bit, but whoever this was just cut these guys off. The smell of coolant in the morning or the afternoon. I'm not sure worry about that too much. Let's just get it out of this little pegs in here. This is a little hard to do with one hand. Let's set this down. All right, let's see if we can get it out now with 2 hands. That'll come right out. Yeah, this is way easier without there's still coolant in there though, which was making a mess. So where's my knife? Oh, I think I left my knife in the car. Can I get, maybe I can do it with keys. Probably not. I broke the connector, but that's okay. I don't think anyone's gonna be using these connectors again on this car. Sorry, Chris. I didn't really want to break these. But this is what happens when I forget my knife. There we go. That came out a little bit easier. So there you go. Let's take that guy off. There we go. We got that bad boy. We just need to replace a lot of the gaskets that are inside here, and then you can take this guy apart and replace the brushes that are in here. This is one of the great things about Denver Beer and Oil is that they this is look at they got bullet holes here in this guy. They're I'll have to link to some videos for this car, but it's their Dyna M5, quote unquote, rough country off-road BMW. Check out the links down below. These guys are awesome. All right, we are back from Denver Beer and Oil, and we actually ended up stopping by LKQ as well because I felt a little bit bad about taking everything from Chris's shop. So here, I'll show you this really quick. We ended up picking up this that we showed, and we ended up getting a couple of trim pieces off of one side as well, because what I wanted to do was to be able to sand these guys down a little bit. And what I needed was a little spot. So this is the rear passenger side. And I wanted a little spot that was kind of buried underneath the seat that was sort of the original color, so that when I take it in and get it color matched for paint, I'll be able to match that color. But then I got a couple of pieces that I'll be able to sand down and repaint and refinish and make sure that's going to work. And then I did end up picking up a trunk panel from a 330i 2001 that is roughly the same. It's not the same color, but it's like a dark gray. It's not the full-on black. It's like a dark gray. So I could flip it over right now, but I got it upside down. But the trunk lid on here is actually in similar shape. It was maybe a little bit better shape. Now that we're home, let's go ahead and we'll get it up on the Quickjacks and we'll get to work underneath the car. There we go, lock it into place so that it's nice and safe. And then to be a little bit extra safe, I'm gonna take my really tall jack stands here and place them under here. I've noticed this actually works pretty well. Make sure and get the bar on the outside and this underneath here. And so if for any reason the hydraulics on this fail, it's only gonna drop about 1/4 of an inch, land on top of these guys, and it's actually physically stopped from dropping any further because of the concrete floor. So I feel like this is actually a pretty safe way to kind of give myself a little bit extra security. And then here I drop this one up underneath here, and sort of the same thing. If it drops down, the whole thing is going to tilt this way and it'll land right on the saddle right here. And so I think we're pretty good. This adds just a little bit extra security, makes me feel a little better. Alrighty, let's get started with the easy one for today, the rear differential fluid change. We've got 2 liters of 75W90 liquid moly gear oil, which was recommended for this differential. I think the differential takes 1.9 liters from empty, so we should have plenty. We have a 14mm hex socket for the drain and fill plugs, and we have 2 replacements that we got for that. The product number for this is 33117525. Just in case you need to replace those. We have a simple and cheap pump to get the gear oil into the diff, which should work pretty well, I hope. Not a big deal. I wish we had those squeezy bottles, but sadly we don't. So let's get the drain plug out and get our rear end drained. That sounds gross. Well, first things first, I kind of want to try and get this thing cleaned off a little bit, just to get it prepped and see what kind of condition it's in, see what sort of previous service was done on it, which really nothing as far as I can tell. It's not that big of a deal, I think. So let's go ahead and get the fill plug out first. It's in there pretty tight, but it comes out just fine. And that's really good news. We got a little bit of oil coming out of it, which means it is filled up like it's supposed to. And actually looking at the oil that comes out of it, it looks like it's actually in pretty decent shape. Next, we got to get the drain plug out now that we have the fill plug out, and it's in there about as tight as the fill plug was, which doesn't surprise me. They've been in here for a while, who knows how long, but I definitely it wasn't taken out recently, that's for sure. And there it comes. Actually, for gear oil, that looks like it's actually in pretty good shape. You can see through it. It's still pretty brown, golden. It's not as light colored as the stuff we're going to put in, but it looks like it has been changed at some point in its life. And like all gear oil, it smells terrible. It's that sulfur smell that you get in gear oil. It just reeks. right, we gotta get the drain plug back in now. You just gotta be smarter than the plug, I guess. For right now, we're just gonna snug it down. We'll go ahead and torque it down a little bit later after we've already filled it up. Now we're ready to fill this thing up, and this little handy dandy tube that came along with the liquid moly bottle does a pretty good job of getting at least the first bit of it into the differential. But as you can see, I've had this thing pretty compressed. I'm trying to squeeze it in there. It's not doing much. So I think we're gonna have to break out the actual pump to make this work. So here we go. This pump, even though it's cheap, it's like $6. It has this handy little clip that goes into the differential, and then we can start pumping it by hand. And as you can see, this is going much faster than it was the other way. That's what we want to see. We've got that nice steady stream coming out, which means it is filled up. So we can take the clip out, stop filling it up, and then just let it drain for a minute until that steady stream starts to slow down. Then you can put your fill plug back in, tighten it down. There's a little bit of inconsistency online when you look up torque specs for both these plugs, but if you read the workshop manual, it does say pretty clearly in there that both of these should be tightened down to 60 Newton meters. There we go. That's pretty tight. We're not going to be able to fit that in there, so we're just going to have to go that one. We'll have to go the drain plug by feel. But now that I know how tight 60 Newton meters felt, this is going to get a little bit more snug than it would have otherwise. All right, that should do it. All right, next up is the automatic transmission service. We'll talk a little bit about the different approaches to doing a transmission service on this one while we're underneath. We'll do a little bit of a voiceover, but needless to say, we have 6 liters, I believe, or these are quarts. Yep, 6 quarts of ATF at the recommendation of ZF. This is the red line, the one they like us to use. We have a man filter. What number is this? It might be a little hard to see there. H2522 is the make of that, and of course we have the little gasket that goes on that bad boy. We ended up getting a 22, I believe, new bolts for this. Apparently shiny is okay according to ECS tuning. That doesn't have the number on it, but they're, let's see, we've got these down here. Oh, that is the number 423273 is the number for those particular bolts. We also got 2 drain fill plugs, one of course for the drain, one for the fill plug, and that is the number 0501321922. You just need 2 of those guys, and then of course I think it was 22 of the bolts. They missed one. But here, let's go ahead and we'll drain the transmission. We will start dropping the pan, and as we're doing that, let's talk a little bit about the approach of fill or flush. That's the question. So on these older E38s, if you're uncertain of maintenance history, should you change your transmission fluid? Well, this might be a bit of a cop-out, but ultimately, it's up to you. You can find dozens of videos on YouTube discussing whether you should or shouldn't, should you flush it, you know. But for me, the answer was yes, even though I know that there is a risk. The transmission has been shifting great. I've not had a problem in any gear. It's been smooth since the day I picked it up. It hasn't given me any warning signs that needed to be changed, but at 112,000 miles, if it's never been changed, it's long overdue, even for a lifetime fluid. My 2007 40i likely had a 50,000 mile drivetrain warranty, which meant that that was likely what BMW considered quote unquote lifetime. As you can see, the ATF as well is pretty dark. Luckily, it didn't have any smell to it at all. It didn't smell like ATF, which isn't good, and it didn't smell burned at all, which is good. There's no little bits or flakes in the fluid at all. It's just very, very fine bits collected on the magnets. And it was still viscous. It still had that kind of lubrication feel to it, so I felt like it was still in okay shape, but it did need to be changed. As did all the bolts, especially this one that somebody stripped long before I got it. All right, so all of them but one came out just fine. So that means I have one of them that is stripped out of that T25. So let me think about what I'm gonna do about that one. I could just get a, what might be the easiest way to do it? Maybe get an angle grinder and just cut a slot into it and use a regular slotted drill bit or a slotted screwdriver. We'll think about that a little bit, see what we can do. I think I'm gonna try that, but wear eye protection first. Oh, I gotta plug it in, don't I? This is where it would be a little more lovely to have a lift. Let's see if that'll do us any good. There we go. What a mess that one was. Phew. Yes. All right, that's it. That's all the bolts. Now this thing is gonna make a mess when I drop it. And I forgot to unhook this guy. Oh. Oh. Oh, no. There we go. Whoa. Woo. Well, the good thing is, looking into the pan here, and the as dirty as the ATF is, there's nothing in the pan. In terms, I mean, there's a little bit of gunk on the magnets, which is pretty typical, but it's a really small amount considering there's 112,000 miles on this bad boy. All in all, that's not too bad. I think I'm just gonna let that drip for a little while, and then we'll come back in, wipe down the filter, and replace it. I don't see it. I don't see the one I need. I do see this, so let's go ahead and take, while we're in here, let's take out the fill plug, because we're gonna replace it as well. Let's change the angle just a hair, see if that helps. There we go, just had to get a little bit better leverage on it. And now we can swap that one out too. Okay, we can't lose these because I got to put these back. Don't drop it in the oil. And hopefully it just pops off nice and easy. Right up here is where the gasket is. Ba-doop, like that. And it's full oil. Okay, trying this again. This time, securing with at least one bolt so that it doesn't drop again. Going to get dirty again. I just want to make sure it doesn't have dirt on it, is my goal. Good to go. And now we just need to clean this guy out a little bit here. I got most of it drained out. And all in all, I mean, it does not look good. I'm not going to pretend like it looks awesome in there. But it also, I've seen worse. So, and we look at this stuff that's in here. This is the stuff that's on the magnets. It actually, I mean, it's super fine, and so it's not at all unusual that you're gonna see that on magnets. At 120,000 miles or 110,000 miles, I would say it's not that bad. Let's just Get a little bit of this in here. Break some of that up. All right. And the gasket edge here is actually not too bad. Let's go ahead and scrape down some of the stuff along the edge here. All right. I think, as you can see, it's actually in pretty good shape. I ended up getting the wire wheel in amongst these parts in here to kind of get them cleaned out, and I think I have everything cleaned out that I need to. So let's put these guys back in here where they belong. Make sure they're cleaned off. Last one. All right. Our magnets are good to go. I think this thing's pretty good to go. Let's take a look at, this was the old gasket. Interesting, it's kind of a plastic gasket, and it's pretty brittle. Clearly it's been there for a long time. And so this is the gasket that came with the set that I got. And it's cork, which I don't know about. But I suppose it is what it is. Let's just see if we can figure out how to get it on here properly. Make sure it's in the right orientation, and then I'll zip tie it down. There you go. That feels right. That's going around. Okay, that's the right orientation. So let's zip tie this guy on in a few spots. And so the idea is that you can zip tie these and then cut them out, and they'll slip right out. We just need to be able to hold it in place for a little bit here. The thick side down, I think that'll make it a little bit easier to pull out too when we clip the other side of it. Oh. Maybe one more up here on the top. And then what I can do is I can put most of the bolts in, pull these guys out, and then put those last bolts in, and it should be in pretty good shape. Maybe like one more right here, I think. And this will keep me from binding it or twisting it or anything else while it's up there. There we go. Here is the pan. Get all these guys pointed down so that they're easier to cut off when the time comes. All right. All right. Now, starting with a new bolt. I'm going to try setting, I think, the four corners, so to speak. Actually, I actually want this to hang a little bit, so I can do one bolt at a time and make sure the gasket is in a good spot. All right, we'll just do one of these at a time, probably. Oh, let's do this the other side. All right. I'll do them on opposite sides just to be sort of smart. Why did I get such terrible steps, dummy? All right. Now that we're going to start torquing these bad boys down, I'm going to use my paint pens on them. Doot. All right, torqued up. Now for the fun part, we get to fill this bad boy up. So this is the fill plug right here. Unfortunately, there's no way I can get a camera up in there to show it, but the drain plug is just off camera right over here to this side. And here's all the bolts that we've already torqued down. So I've got this little hand plump that unfortunately is going to be about the only way for me to be able to get this to work. So hopefully, I know there's not a ton of room inside right here, so that's not too bad right there. Ooh, this is so amazing. But I bet we're not too far from this actually being full. And the good thing is I'm not currently seeing any leaks, so that's always a good sign. There we go. Now she's leaking out. Awesome sauce. That's exactly what we were looking for. Pull this guy out a little bit here. All right. I would like if that was leaking a hair more than that. So I may put this back in just for a second. There we go. That's a little bit better. Okay. That's what I was looking for right there. Nice steady flow, not just a drip. I wanted that actually flowing out of there, just like that. Perfect. I'm just gonna snug it like that. That should be good to go. All right, so we got all of that done, all the ATF fluid in. Now we need to start the car and actually go through all the gears. Now I don't really want to climb into the car, so well, hopefully we can do this off on the side just a little bit. But basically all we need to do is start it long enough to get the transmission to pull the fluid up into the transmission. So we're just gonna run real quickly through reverse, hold it there for a second, neutral, hold it for a second, drive, hold it for a second, back into park, turn it off. All right. Okay, pull it into reverse. Oh, it's not gonna let me. I may have to have my foot on the brake, so give me 1 second here. Here we go, reverse. Pull that fluid up, neutral, pull that fluid up, drive, pull that fluid up, neutral, reverse, back into park. Okay, now I need to leave it running and get back underneath the car and put some new fluid in. So right about here, I realize I'm not going to have enough ATF fluid to fill up the transmission right now. And there's no place I can go buy it at approximately 11 o'clock at night. All right. That is not how I planned on today going at all, period. Well, I shouldn't say that. You know, we got the diff changed, and we got the automatic transmission changed for the most part. We are, it looks like, in the neighborhood of about a quart low, maybe 2 at the most. And so I think there's 2 things that might have happened. It may have either been that it was low to begin with, or I let it drain too long. I let it drain for probably an hour and a half, while I downloaded all the video and things off of my cards. And the end result is it may have drained a little bit more than I probably should have let it. So I'm a little bit low. And so tomorrow morning I'm going to go ahead and order another probably 2 quarts or 2 liters, just to make sure I have enough. And hopefully we can get them here in a day or 2. I'll see if there's someplace around locally that I can get it. I do actually have 7 other quarts of transmission fluid in here that are for the Rover, but it's not the right stuff. So it's not synthetic. And even if it was synthetic, I want to make sure and use the same stuff. So I think that's all I'm going to work on for the car for today. It's pretty late in the day. I want to make sure and get this video uploaded. So I need to be able to edit it. And so we're going to end it here. The next video, we are going to take care of the fuel system. We'll do the fuel filter. We'll do the fuel pump. We'll probably go ahead and clean the injectors too. So we may start go ahead and disassembling the top of the engine to do the valley pan gutter. That seems like a good thing to be working on next, I think. Kind of start tearing down into the engine. But one of the things that I talked about at the beginning of the video was actually doing a bit of a whiteboard. I have a whiteboard here, so we might as well go ahead and kind of spell out all the stuff that I have planned on doing on this car. We've talked a little bit about it in terms of the parts that I have, but let's go ahead and I'm just going to fill it out really quick, and then we'll talk through it real quick. I don't necessarily want to go through the whole list, other than I think it's going to be a good thing for us to be able to sort of check off as we're going along. So there's a couple of things that I could probably mark off today. Well, it's funny, I actually put that under engine and suspension and exterior, but I forgot to actually write down the work that I did today. So here we'll do this engine. Man, I'm so tired right now. Mechanical. All right, so the nice thing is by doing this, at least I give myself a couple to mark off. Rear diff is done. Windshield is done. The cowl is done. What else? Radio is done. Suspension, we haven't really started on that. Air filter is actually done. I went ahead and changed that one. Woohoo! Air intake I have. So let's do this. We'll mark off a couple things we think we're going to get to next time, and I didn't put them on here already, but we will be doing that next time. So I'm going to circle that with, or I'm going to hit that with the green arrow. We'll do that next time. We're going to do the air intake in the cabin next time. Let's see, what else we have time? We're probably going to get started on this one, on the valley pan gutter, I think. The other thing I might actually work on next time too is the cluster fix. That's been kind of I've been looking forward to doing that one. I think I have to do that one a little bit earlier than I had planned on doing. So definitely fuel filter, fuel pump, air intake cabin, and either the cluster fix or we'll get started on the valley pan depending on how timing goes. So you can see this is a pretty long list. It's going to be a challenge to get this done in a couple of episodes. So I may have to push some of these together. All the suspension's probably going to be done in one episode, so I'm probably not too worried about that. And actually some of this stuff are going to be going together as they happen anyway. Like power steering probably will be done at the same time as the chain tensioning guides, or as the chain guides. We'll see. A lot of the interior probably happens at the same time, but either way, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Hopefully you learned a little something on the rear def and on changing the auto transmission fluid. The one thing being, make sure that you have enough fluid to actually do the change, I suppose. But either way, I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, make sure and give me a thumbs up. That really helps on the algorithms. And as a new channel, I need all the help I can get. So comments, likes, and subscribe if you're so inclined. I'd really appreciate it. Hope you guys enjoyed it. We'll see you guys in the next episode. If I survived that long. God, I hope so. I'm going to bed.